welcome back to the Oral Health Podcast. I'm here with Karen again. So we're having a little bit of a talk today about immunisations because it's World Immunisation Week. We do a lot of information and support for HPV vaccines because it has been shown that HPV is a main cause of mouth cancer, something that we advocate for more awareness of. But also, as you might not be aware, dentists and dental professionals have to get regular immunisations to be able to do the job they do. So since I'm not a dentist, I've got a dental professional here with me. Karen, as always, how are you doing?
I'm good. Glad it's Wednesday, but it's still a little bit chilly, but it's good.
Yeah, I need the summer weather back. But, immunisations, vaccines, it's something we've talked about a lot. But if we just discuss HPV for a little bit, what is the HPV vaccine?
Well, the vaccine was initially made to help to prevent cervical cancer in women and girls. So it was given to girls at the age of 12-ish in that year of school to prevent cervical cancer, which is the HPV 16 and 18. So it's given as they're at school. It's 2 doses, and that is all they need for lifetime protection from this. So we've seen a massive drop in cervical cancer over the years. So it's really important that we look at that, not only from the point of view of the cervical cancer, but as we now know a little bit more about how the HPV works, it is one of the major causes of mouth cancer. So we are now looking at the vaccination protecting against mouth cancer as well. So that with that in mind, there was a whole section of the population that's being missed, men and boys, because when the vaccine obviously first came out, it was for cervical cancer. So we were finding that the spread of HPV cancers caused by HPV were growing in different sections, and it was being passed then on and on and on through males. So, we did the campaign several years ago, Jabs for Boys. That is now a thing. Boys at the same age as girls are now vaccinated. That vaccination programme can be back vaccinated. So I'm sure you'll be able to put the details on. Mm-hmm. So if you have a son who hasn't had the vaccine but is born after a certain time, he will be able to have the vaccine free of charge. Same for girls. If they missed out on it for whatever reason, I mean, I'm thinking COVID here because girls, well, nobody was at school at the time. So if they missed the time that they would have had it at school, please speak to your doctor and get it, because it will revolutionise what we're looking at here. The way it's revolutionised the drop in cervical cancer, we want it to do the same with mouth cancer as well.
Because we've seen and spoke to people that have been really affected by mouth cancer, and so it hits close to our hearts, maybe a little bit more than the average person. But it doesn't mean it's any less important to make sure that you are up to date with your vaccines and aware. It's
2 injections. I mean, that's all it is, and it's not, not something you've got to repeat and repeat and repeat. Just if you get it done when you're younger, you can almost go, right, I don't need to think about it having another injection or a booster or whatever, because the protection lasts. And as we go on, it will be great to see a drop in mouth cancers caused by HPV, because we can differentiate what it's caused by, so we can tell. So we will be able to see a drop in HPV 16 and 18 mouth cancers. they tend to be nearer the back of the throat, tonsils, back of the tongue, further back in the mouth. So we will be able to see a curve, I think, going downwards.
Yeah. When I spoke to our mouth cancer researcher for Mouth Cancer Action Month, he was talking about how he can look at a cancer cell and say, like, yeah, that's HPV linked, that's not HPV linked. And so if he put it really, really well, because he's a smart guy. So if I can find the clip, I'll put it in here.
The HPV positive tumours are interesting. They're very different. The HPV negative tumours tend to occur in the tongue, in the floor of the mouth, in the oral cavity, whereas the HPV positive tumours occur further back in the glandular regions at the back of the mouth. And they actually appear to be quite different diseases. I mean, that may be because of the different cells that they're originating from. Rather than being on the tongue and the floor of the mouth, they're back in the glands. Or it may be because of the genetic driver. HPV positive tumours are obviously driven by HPV, whereas the ones in the oral cavity, the HPV negative tumours, are driven by a range of mutations which are induced by the sort of environmental insults like smoking, drinking and pollution. So they're quite different. The other thing is that the HPV positive tumours, obviously there's now a vaccination against HPV. So I think what is expected is that we'll see a peak in tumours driven by HPV infection and then a decline. And the other thing to note is that the HPV positive tumours tend to have a much better prognosis. Not always the case. Some, and we don't know why, some are quite aggressive, but most HPV positive tumours are relatively less aggressive compared to HPV negative tumours and have a better outcome overall.
So getting the HPV vaccine, it's best to get it before you become sexually active because it is spread through sexual transmission. Yes. And so that's why it is given at like 11 to 12-year-olds. That's
that doesn't mean to say that you can't have the vaccine after that. Homosexual men can have it anytime. So they can get the vaccine at any point. So that's important to remember as well. But we will put on who's entitled to it free of charge. You can pay privately to have it done. The older you are, you might need 3 doses. But if you're 12 years old, you'll only need the 2. So it may be that you need 3 doses if you're a little bit older. But if you're entitled to it and you're at risk category, have it done. It's much simpler than obviously going through what could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, if you have a think back and if you think, I got we called it the cancer jab at school. Like, I got the cancer jab, so I'm covered for that. But just have a look into it. Do your research. Really do your research when it comes to vaccines, because it's quite easy now for misinformation to spread, and no one can claim to know everything about anything, right? But just make sure that when you're researching stuff, you're looking at everything balanced and you can make a level-headed decision about things, because that's the best way going forward to do anything related to your health, and that's what this is at the end of the day.
Looking at robust research, you've got to look at research that's been carried out over a long period of time with enough people for it to stack up. There's nothing worse than looking at shaky research and taking it as gospel, because that's not the
slippery slope.
It really does. And we have now there is something that is being coined by the media, vaccine fatigue. And because we're all having various COVID injections, it's almost got to the point where we're fed up of having needles stuck in us. And I think the loser of that has been the children that haven't had their HPV vaccine. Now, part of it may be because of vaccine fatigue, and part of it will be because the schools weren't actually functioning at the time when these children would have been having their vaccination. So I think you need to look at it, see if your child has had it. If they haven't had it, speak to your GP, get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, moving on then slightly from HPV, a vaccine we talk less about is hepatitis. But obviously, as a dental professional, that's something that you really need to keep up with, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's saliva-borne, blood-borne. Hepatitis B is obviously affects your liver. It's not a nice condition. It's, as I say, spread quite easily through aerosol droplets, that kind of thing, which all happen in the dental surgery. So anybody working within a clinical area needs to have that vaccine. Sometimes there's a bit of a shortage of it, so dentists will be vaccinated first, then nurses, and in that order. So that is something that is done. It used to be that you used to have a booster every so often, but I think that might be a little bit out now. I think they've found that it lasts longer in the system than was previously thought. So for some people, it will just be one course. I mean, when I had it years ago, it was 3 injections, which again is nothing really. I mean, they're not. They're only little.
It's done in 10 seconds.
I know, it's only a little sting, really. She says, I don't like needles, but, I have
I was going to say,
I don't like it very much, but, I know that the alternative is worse than the discomfort of just having a small injection. And, we are in a really, really good position from when we look at, years gone by, when people used to die of the illnesses that we are now vaccinated against, and in some cases completely eradicated. I mean, we've got rid of some of the major killers of young people and children that probably wouldn't have survived even probably 60, 70 years ago. And that's relatively recent history, that we are now in a position that medicine has moved on so well that we are able to get on top of these diseases. It's amazing, the science. And when we talk about the COVID injections, how quickly that was brought in, and that saved so many more lives, that you can't just dismiss it. You have to look at the facts and protect yourself against something that is far worse.
Absolutely, I couldn't put it any better myself. And I just want to end on the note of make sure you do your research. I am never going to be the person to tell people exactly what they need to think and do. Everyone can think for themselves. Just make sure that you're really thinking for yourself when you make these kind of decisions.
Yes. I mean, you need a trusted source. I mean...
Facebook is not.
I was about to say, social media is probably not where you should be getting.
But ours is great, Karen.
Well, yes, but we're coming from a professional point of view, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I think that, it has to be a trusted source, and hopefully we are a trusted source, and we come at things from both angles. Like, we're not saying, right, I'm going to march you down and you're going to have this needle in your arm. We want you to be aware of the risks of not having it and put the ball in your court. You can research it and have a look at the figures and make a decision for yourself. But all I would say is myself and my children, we are vaccinated with with whatever is necessary for us at the time. So, and that's because I have done my research. But as I say, it's not for everybody.
It's not suitable for everyone. If I have a friend that has a very severe egg allergy, physically cannot have vaccines. No. Everyone's got their individual circumstances.
Of course.
But we'll be talking about something a little bit more cheerful next week. But because we took a little bit of a turn there. But it's a good topic to touch on, I think. And we'll be back next week with something else. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.